Trev, come here. Come here.
Stand for 911. Where's your emergency?
This is Sandy. 231 Rock Crimin Road.
What's the
Send
problem?
the police. Send the police.
On Monday, February 16, 2009, 55-year-old Charla Nash's life would change forever. It started with a phone call from her longtime friend Sandra Herold. It ended with a frantic call to 911. You see, Charla had just been the victim of a gruesome, life-altering attack, and the perpetrator, a 14-year-old, 240-pound chimpanzee named Travis. The news of what happened to Charla and Travis sent shockwaves through the nation, and the biggest question on everyone's mind, what had caused Travis to do this, wouldn't get a clear-cut answer. I'm Brooke, and this is Armchair Investigator. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the tragic story of Travis the Chimp and Charla Nash. It's estimated that there are over 700 chimpanzees being kept as pets in the United States. In 2009, a chimpanzee in Stamford, Connecticut named Travis was part of that number. But his story starts much earlier than that. Travis was born on October 21, 1995, in what's now called the Missouri Chimpanzee Sanctuary. His father, Coco, had been imported to the United States from Africa in the 1970s. His mother was an 11-year-old retired zoo chimp named Susie. Just 3 days after Travis's birth, on October 24, 1995, a couple from Connecticut named Sandra and Jerry Herold purchased Travis for $40,000 from a woman named Connie Casey. I think it's important to note that there are discrepancies with Travis's birth date. Most news outlets list his birthday as being in October of 1995, while some documents list June of 1994. And while everyone wondered why Sandra had wanted a chimp in the first place, it soon became clear just how special Travis was to her. Sandra raised Travis like he was a human child. She put diapers on him, fed him formula from a bottle, and dressed him in baby clothes. Sandra's fascination with chimpanzees began in the 1970s, when, for a time, Sandra, Jerry, and their daughter Susan traveled state to state barrel racing their horses in rodeos.
Sports presents, from Inglewood, California, Forum Championship Rodeo.
This is also how they'd come to meet Charla Nash. It was during one rodeo that Sandra saw a chimpanzee dressed as a cowboy riding a horse around the ring. It was the cutest thing she'd ever seen. But Sandra didn't go out and buy a chimpanzee right away. It wasn't until her daughter moved away and her parents became ill and died that Sandra realized she was missing something in her life. That's where Travis came in. When Travis first arrived home, he slept in a crib in Sandra and Jerry's room, but it wasn't long until he was sleeping in their bed with them. They documented Travis's milestones, much like a parent would for their own child. At 3 months, he turned over. By 6 months, he was walking. The couple took baths with their chimps and even taught him how to brush his teeth. There was no question about it. Travis was more than a family pet. With Sandra later telling reporters, "He couldn't be more my son than if I gave birth to him." 5 years after purchasing Travis, in 2000, the Herolds lost their only child, Susan, when she was killed in a car accident after hitting a tree. From that point on, Travis became Sandra and Jerry's entire world. The couple modified their home to better suit their beloved chimp. As the years went by, it was clear that Travis was living a life far different from how chimpanzees should naturally live. Instead of foraging for food and climbing trees, he was watching TV, using a toilet, and eating ice cream. He could even use a computer, warm up food in the microwave, and eventually learned how to drive a car. Travis appeared happy and full of life. It was evident just how intelligent the chimp was. And boy, was he a character. He loved driving the lawnmower and going for rides in the car. Sandra and Jerry even took him to work with them every day. Travis was charming and friendly. Everyone who entered their shop loved him. Travis even became somewhat of a local celebrity. It wasn't long before he was appearing on TV shows and commercials. Everything from Pepsi and Old Navy ads to the Maury Povich show.
You're welcome. Despite being wonderful companions over the past semester, I'm sorry to report that my subject group scored below average in all responses. They showed poor communication skills, no understanding of tools and their uses, a complete lack of organization, and no decision-making abilities. In conclusion, if I can't find some extraordinary missing link that will unlock the barrier between us, this project will be canceled. Thank you. You're welcome.
The world couldn't get enough of Travis. Even the neighbors adored him, and one claimed to have wrestled with Travis. After all, everyone trusted him. The chimp seemed to know when to stop, and he didn't show any signs of violence until he was 8 years old. During an incident in October of 2003, Sandra and Jerry were reminded of just how much chaos their chimp could cause when a pedestrian threw an empty soda can at the Herold's car while it was stopped at a light. The can went through the partially open window and hit Travis. Startled, Travis unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the car door, and tried chasing the man down. The man escaped, but what ensued was hours' worth of trying to detain an agitated chimp. No sooner would officers get him back in Jerry's car, he would let himself out, even chasing officers around the street. And while nobody got hurt, it was something that the state of Connecticut didn't want to deal with again. The state passed a law limiting primates to 50 pounds if they were pets, and required owners to have a permit. But here's the thing, Travis was exempt from that rule because the Herolds had had him since the 90s. And the Department of Environmental Protection didn't consider Travis a public safety risk at the time. In fact, most everyone at the Stanford police station adored Travis. No charges were pressed, and several of the officers wrote in their reports that the chimp's attitude was merely playful. And while police officers made light of the situation, animal control officers were definitely uneasy about it, fearing that the incident could be the start of worsening behavior. They contacted Sandra with their concerns. Travis was a sexually mature adult chimpanzee, who are known in the wild to copulate as many as 50 times a day. When chimps reach sexual maturity, they tend to want to dominate and take charge. And he had the strength of at least 4 to 5 men.
Chill. That's enough.
Adult chimpanzees are also known to be unpredictable and violent, which is why we typically only saw adolescent chimp actors in the entertainment industry. Animal control felt that Sandra and Jerry keeping Travis for the duration of his life, which could be another 50 years, wasn't plausible. After the soda can incident, the Herold stopped taking Travis out in public. In 2004, things again took a turn for the Herold family. In March, Jerry began complaining about stomach pain. It was so intense that one day at work, he asked one of his employees to take him to the hospital. That's when Jerry learned that he had stomach cancer, and it was spreading rapidly. Unfortunately, there was nothing doctors could do to slow the spread. Jerry passed away on April 12th, but not before voicing concerns over Sandra, who was then 67 years old, and her ability to take care of Travis on her own. He asked her to consider sending the chimp to a sanctuary, saying that it would be best for the both of them. The sudden loss of her husband not only sent Sandra into severe depression, but it seemed to deeply affect Travis, too. He would rock back and forth for hours and took pictures of Jerry off the wall, kissing and hugging them to his chest. Sandra would later write, "We are both lost without him and miss him dearly. Travis still waits for him, especially at supper time, because at that time, they both had a glass of wine with their supper." The idea of sending Travis to a sanctuary loomed in Sandra's mind. But how could she? The two were mourning Jerry together, and Travis was all she had. Whenever she cried, Travis lovingly brushed her hair and even filed her nails with a nail file. Nearly a year after Jerry's passing, Sandra sat down and wrote a letter to a woman in Florida who ran a chimpanzee sanctuary, telling her that she was worried about what would happen to Travis if she were to die. She wanted him to have the best life possible and to be around other chimps. Sandra said she set up a trust fund for Travis and would love to come to Florida to see her sanctuary. Included in her letter were photos of Travis and a check for $250. But here's the thing, she never mailed it. With Jerry gone, Sandra indeed found it difficult to deal with Travis on her own. The chimp, who was now weighing in at 240 pounds, was considered morbidly obese, and his strength had long surpassed Sandra's. In early 2008, she began construction on a large new addition to the house that Jerry had designed for Travis years earlier. At this point, Travis spent his days watching TV, playing on the computer, painting, and snacking. On February 16, 2009, Sandra gave Travis a cup of tea that had Xanax in it, hoping it would help regulate his unstable mood. But it didn't seem to have any effect. A few minutes later, he took Sandra's car keys and escaped the house. Not knowing what else to do, Sandra called Charla to come over and help. See, Charla had known Travis since he was a baby, and she was a frequent visitor to the home as she and Sandra had been friends for years, though they eventually drifted apart. Shortly after Jerry's death, they reconnected, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Sandra was lonely and in need of friendship, while Charla and her then 12-year-old daughter were struggling financially and needing a place to stay. Sandra gave Charla a job working as a dispatcher and bookkeeper for her towing company, and let the two stay in a loft that belonged to Sandra's late daughter, rent-free. Charla also took care of Sandra's lawn and looked in on Travis from time to time. The arrangement seemed to work out great for everyone. The weekend before the attack, Sandra and Charla went to the Mohegan Sun Casino in Montville. The two rarely went out like this, but it was a trip that they were both looking forward to. Before they left, they got their hair done at a salon, then spent the weekend at the casino gambling and dining out. When they returned on Monday, February 16th, Sandra came home to an agitated Chimp. He didn't want to do any of the things he loved. He wasn't interested in watching TV, coloring, or eating any of his favorite snacks. After giving Travis fish and chips for lunch, Sandra put a Xanax in his afternoon tea. Shortly after, while Sandra was cleaning his room, Travis took the house keys from the kitchen counter and let himself outside. From there, he began running from car to car, wanting to go for a ride. When Sandra failed to get Travis back in the house on her own, she called her friend. Charla arrived around 3:40 p.m. In an attempt to lure Travis back into the house, Charla held out his favorite toy, a red Tickle Me Elmo doll. But her idea didn't go as planned. Travis charged towards Charla before getting on his hind legs and launching a savage attack, knocking her into the side of her car, pouncing on her, and tearing at anything he could get his hands on. Desperate to save her friend, Sandra hit Travis over the head with a shovel, but it didn't seem to faze him. Not knowing what else to do, she ran in the house and grabbed a butcher knife, stabbing the Chimp 3 times in the back. Later saying, "For me to do something like that, put a knife in him, was like putting one in myself." Sandra then locked herself in a nearby car and called 911, frantically telling operators that a Chimp had killed her friend.
Stand for 911. Where's your emergency?
Oh, this is Sandra Herold. 241 Rock Rimmon Road.
What's the
Send
problem?
the police. Send the police.
What's the problem there?
The Chimp killed my friend.
What's the problem with your friend?
Oh, please.
What's the problem with your friend? I need to know.
Send the police up with a gun. With a gun.
When officers arrived, Travis was roaming the property. Upon seeing the officers, he quickly made his way towards a police car. Circling it, he frantically tried opening the passenger side door. It was locked. He then made his way to the driver's side door and opened it. Officer Frank Chiafari was left with no choice but to open fire. Despite being shot 4 times at close range, Travis wasn't immediately immobilized. From the yard, he ran back inside the house, collapsed inside his enclosure, and died. Charla's situation was so dire that officers initially assumed she was dead, until she reached for an officer's leg. Tragically, Charla lost virtually her entire face. Travis had torn away her eyelids, nose and lips, gouged out her eyes, chewed off her left hand, and nearly tore off her right arm. Investigators estimate that the attack on Charla lasted an agonizing 12 minutes. In the days following the attack, Charla underwent hours of extensive surgery. Travis had broken nearly all of the bones in her face, dislocated her jaw, removed her scalp, and left her blind and suffering with brain damage. Charla's injuries were so severe that the hospital she was treated at offered counseling sessions to the staff members who initially treated her. 3 days after the attack, once Charla was stabilized, she was flown to the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio for an experimental face transplant, undergoing 15 months of intervention. Nobody knows why Travis did what he did. Some have speculated that perhaps he didn't recognize Charla, as she had recently changed her hair. The idea of a stranger at his home, holding his favorite toy, could have caused the chimp to become frightened, confused, and territorial. Several point to the Xanax that Sandra had given him shortly before the attack, believing it could have caused hallucinations, adding to his aggression. While others believe that Travis was simply a wild animal who was living an unnatural lifestyle and snapped. A part of me can't help but wonder if Travis was upset about Sandra leaving. Remember, she had just returned home from her casino trip, and she had plans to meet up with a friend later that day. I know those of you who have pets can attest to the fact that A, our pets know when we're planning on leaving, and B, they do indeed get mad at us for leaving them. Travis's head was taken to a state lab to be examined and tested for rabies as part of an investigation into the attack. And while he didn't have any diseases, he was on preventative medication for Lyme disease. 9 days after the attack, on February 25th, Travis's remains were cremated at All Pets Cemetery in Stamford. And as for Charla, the attack happened in February, and by November she was appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show to talk about what she had been through, saying, "I've never been a quitter. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do. I've lost so much independence. I could change my own truck tire, and now I can't even feed myself." Despite all of the challenges she faced, Charla remained positive about her recovery, choosing to focus on how the surgeries and work that was being done on her could help those with facial disfigurements in the future. A month after the attack, Charla's family filed a $50 million lawsuit against Sandy. In November of 2012, Charla settled with Sandra's estate and received nearly $4 million. The attack on Charla sent shockwaves rippling across the nation, sparking debates over the concept of keeping exotic animals as pets. In 2009, the Captive Primate Safety Act, which would have prohibited monkeys, apes, and lemurs from being sold as pets, was introduced but failed to pass the Senate. Shortly after the attack, 2 former residents of Stamford would come forward sharing stories about their encounters with Travis. A woman named Leslie claimed that in 1996, when Travis was a year old, he had bitten her hand. She had seen the chimp sitting in a car with Sandra outside of St. Joseph's Medical Center when curiosity got the best of her. She walked over to the Herold's car to get a closer look, asking if she could shake the chimp's hand. She said that's when Travis pulled her hand into the car and bit her. The woman claimed she went to the Stamford police as well as the Connecticut State Police to report the incident, but says her complaint wasn't handled properly.
I asked her if I could say hello to I thought he was a monkey at the time. She said absolutely. So I started reaching to shake his hand, and he grabbed it when it got to the side view mirror on her side and started pulling me towards, inside the car. And then I'm pulling back and he bit down on my hand.
She was not seriously injured. The bite broke the skin.
Then a man came forward with information that in 1998, Travis had bitten his thumb after he attempted to pick up a toy the chimp had dropped. 15 months after the attack, Sandy died from an aneurysm. She was buried with 2 urns beside her. One was her daughter's, and the other belonged to Travis. It's been years since Charla has publicly spoken out about the attack, choosing to instead focus on her recovery and gaining her independence back. As of 2022, she was living in Boston, Massachusetts, to be closer to Brigham and Women's Hospital, where she was receiving treatment. Today's story is a tragedy in the true sense of the word, an event causing great suffering, destruction, and distress. It's clear to me that there are two victims in the situation, Charla and Travis. Unfortunately, he was the product of two chimpanzees who were being kept as pets. He never had a choice in the matter. Nothing about his life was normal. He was drinking wine, eating ice cream, being confined in a home. And while Sandra viewed these things as love, it clearly wasn't in the best interest of the chimp. This is one of those stories that just sticks with you. I've been following it since it happened in 2009. It's been living rent-free in my head ever since. Kind of like the Jeannie Wiley story. I know that I've given you a lot to unpack today, but I cannot wait to hear from you. Had you heard about Travis the chimp before today's video? Do you personally know anybody that keeps large exotic pets? As a child visiting the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, there was a store that kept a bear as a pet. You could buy it a Faygo Pop and then give it to the bear and watch it drink it. I always remember leaving that store more traumatized than when I first arrived. Even as a child, I could see that the bear's life was less than optimal. It was sickly and sad, but the owners kept it as an attraction. Sometimes humans can be the biggest monsters of all. If you appreciate today's video, give it a thumbs up, and hey, while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on the next investigation.